Ryan,
Tony, and Crystal.
We can't guarantee that you're gonna look great, but if you wanna stay in shape, well, you better hit the GymWits. That's right, man. Tell 'em.
welcome to the GymWits podcast. I'm Ryan George.
I'm Justin Guild, aka Chef Sonic.
And we are the GymWits. So as we're on our kind of, we're a week behind as far as when we're recording. We're in the midst of election results coming in. It was rapidly. Now it's very, very slowly kind of trickling in. I would assume that by next week, when people are listening to this, it'll be over. But what's your take? How did you spend last night?
I stayed up pretty late. I had a bottle of whiskey right next to me.
Yeah.
So that's how I dealt with last night.
Yeah. Now, obviously, our listeners know we're on the more liberal side. You're
on the liberal side. I'm on the anti-Trump side.
Okay, fair enough.
That's and yes, I do have a lot of liberal. As far as human rights go, that's always where I'm going to stand.
Yeah.
But regardless of my politics, I am anti-Trump. It's like it could be pretty much anyone else there. It would take a lot for me to vote for Trump.
Yeah.
So that's it. I'm saying it.
So now, how nervous were you when, beginning of the day, all the polls seemed to point to Biden like running away with this thing. How were you?
I said months ago, I thought Trump was going to win.
Yeah.
I said that I didn't really think that Biden can win. Mm-hmm. Right. I thought that Trump was just too popular and he was just that I didn't care what the polls said. I just thought that that Trump was going to win. I said I just didn't think that Biden could bring back the blue wall, like the states where he had to win, Michigan, Pennsylvania, Ohio, all of those. And I didn't know if he was going to be able to flip any red strongholds.
Yeah. Well, now it's as we're speaking right now, it is, I think I was like last night. So I was supposed to be a poll worker yesterday. And I sat, waited. I was on standby. So I was sitting in a large room, very crowded, from about 9:30 until I was released about 3:30. So then I just got home and waited, and I was watching until about 1 o'clock. I think it got to the point where I was really disappointed and kind of sad. Not like it wasn't depressing like last year, but I was definitely like down because I was hoping. I was cautiously optimistic that maybe the polls were right. But I was also realistic, and kind of like you, I think, it's not that, I still thought and think that Biden would take it, but it was more of the anti-Trump vote. It was like more of a situation where Trump has people who he has his fanatics and fans, but he also is very polarizing. And so you would have a situation where you've got a lot of people voting against him because really, to be honest, I don't think anybody's, excitedly voting for Biden. He's not, generating tons of enthusiasm and excitement. It's really like we want to get Trump out is where you're getting that. So that's the difference. So I was pretty depressed when I went to bed last night, but I also realized, look, nothing's going to end today. And granted, like we were talking about this before that, with all the mail-in voting, there was that kind of red mirage scenario where it would look like a Trump lead that would slowly evaporate as the mail-in ballots came in. And now it's kind of looking like that because we're seeing all of those swing states. Like when I woke up this morning, Pennsylvania, Michigan, North Carolina, Wisconsin were all in the Trump camp, and then they've all either moved or are moving over towards Biden. So now it's looking like a situation where Biden has the advantage, but we don't know. And again, obviously, when you listen to this podcast, we will likely know the result. But
and hopefully, if there is a result that's in Biden's favor, that it's not now caught up in the courts and whatnot, and that we're going through some crazy.
Yeah, that would suck. But we'll see.
For the country. It would be really bad for the country.
I mean, fingers crossed. We'll see how this turns out. And again, like hopefully when we record next Wednesday, for the following Wednesday, it will be, we'll know what happens. I think just no matter what, this getting caught up in the court, it just sucks, and it would be a shame if that happens. I just think that I think it was surprisingly calm as far as like there was as far as I know, no violence. I heard there were some reports of like voter intimidation, but for the most part, it seems like election day ran pretty smoothly. And I would be afraid if you have anything like that what happens as far as violence goes, if we have a situation where it's like it goes to the courts, because I just think that would be a situation where people might freak, but we'll see.
And I don't condone violence, but I would condone violence in that I'm serious, because that's what's called revolution, right? Or it's what's called trying to when you're actually when there is corruption. Now, I wouldn't condone violence on another person, but right, it took violence for us to win our independence, right? It did. And if an unjust government is trying to control the people by illegal manners, that was not meant to be, right? By corrupt manners, there is only one answer to that.
No, that would be fair.
It's what's called leaving with no other choice.
Yeah,
right?
No,
that's what happens. Sadly, sadly that's when when you leave people with no other choice. That's that's what happens.
I think that that's true. I think like there's a lot riding on on the Supreme Court over the next few months, and we would hope that it doesn't become a partisan thing, that they're really focused on the law, and unless they're I mean, we'll see. It just this year has been so chaotic and crazy. Like, who knows? But yeah, we definitely would hope that things are, don't, fall into chaos and violence and everything. And,
I mean, I don't hope it. I don't wish for it. But right, if something happens, and people decide to burn down the all the monuments in Washington, good. Like, I don't want anyone to get hurt. Like, again, I never condone violence on another person. But hey, if you want to destroy everything in Washington, go for it. Burn it to the ground. I'm serious. I won't participate in it. But
I won't. I understand.
No, I just won't. Right. But if that's what happened and people decided to burn Washington to the ground, right? I would say that's what happens when you try to control the people that way, right, by using corrupt, illegal manners. That's what happens.
Yeah.
Right.
That's fair. Which is what makes it a little scary, the other way, if there, because I think, part of his speech was saying that there's corruption. And if there's not corruption, but you say there's corruption, you run the risk of people reacting like that, because, on the same, just as you're saying that, from the Supreme Court end, if somebody's on the other side and thinks there's corruption, they may feel justified in reacting. So, you do want to be careful.
Oh, I understand, but you can't just say that there's
I know
without evidence.
No, I'm playing devil's advocate.
Right. Yeah, I got you. It's because it's so easy to say, oh well, they fix it, but you can't that goes down a line of just, well, now you could just say anything. It's like, right, if the system that we've used since the beginning of our country, now you all of a sudden decide to change it just because you can, that's corruption.
Yeah.
That's
Speaking
corruption.
of, we actually were talking about we were talking about voting by online last episode, and I actually realized that there are a couple of places, small counties in the U.S. that actually do vote online. So I guess it's not that far down the line that maybe we do have a larger percentage. I think I do think you want to make it easier and give incentives for people to vote, and so hopefully maybe that's something that will come to fruition on a larger scale at some point.
So I have something. So I don't know if you heard this, but one of the most popular fighters, MMA fighters, especially when we were really first getting into it, was elected a councilman in California. Tito Ortiz.
He really was elected as a wow.
That's funny, right?
I mean, I guess
the Huntington Beach council seat.
He's a big Republican, a big Trump fan.
Yeah.
Well, Kane from the WWE is a mayor. I think he's like a libertarian.
Well,
He's libertarian, and he's a mayor of like I forget where.
well, for what it's worth, politics and pro wrestling are not that far apart
Yeah.
from each other, right? The way they speak, right? And
Yeah.
we've seen that
The theater of it.
been plenty of professional wrestlers that have had success in politics.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, I mean, we know Jesse Ventura.
No, there's been others too. I can't remember offhand, but like I remember reading a list of, and like, look, small. A lot of it has been small local government, but still, that shows something. And if you watch the movie Idiocracy, the president is a pro wrestler, which is just so
Idiocracy,
brilliant,
like the most
prophetic. Yeah. I know.
Oh God, yeah, it's such a good movie, but yeah, it's like wow. All right, well, so today I guess we have a little bit of like we're kind of winging it. We were supposed to have an interview. The interview never showed up. So, we'll see. Hopefully we'll try to get it rescheduled. It seemed like an interesting person that we, would like to have on, but in the meantime, we're just kind of winging it. It's been a crazy day and week anyway, with the election. But what's going on your end? Have you been exercising?
I have. I've been making great use of my jump rope.
Yeah.
So I've been doing a lot of jump roping. I've been doing a lot of burpees, stuff like that. I'm just a little too nervous to go to the gym.
Yeah.
Like I just don't, I feel it's a risk versus reward. I'm going to have to go back home in a few weeks for Thanksgiving. I'm going to be around a lot of elderly people.
Yeah. Ugh.
And it just doesn't seem like a wise decision. It's the same thing with going out. I'd love to go out and check out a lot of live music and play out.
Yeah.
It just doesn't seem like it's risk versus reward. Am I really gaining that much right now based on what I can lose?
Yeah.
Right. So look, I don't, if I get sick myself, I'll probably live through it. It probably won't be fun, but I could deal with that. But risking other people, to me, that's the big issue. Elderly people or others just outside, like you never know. You never know who's immunocompromised. You never know who else is going home. That's how stuff spreads. It's like it's not just about yourself. Yeah, maybe I'm fine, and maybe the next young guy at a bar is fine, but maybe he goes home and he sees his grandparents or something like that, or his parents or his uncle or aunt or or his sister has a pre-existing condition that can't handle it. So who knows?
Yeah. No, that's fair. Makes sense. And that's the right way to kind of look at it. I've been I've really barely been in a gym. I've been working out with friends like in the park. We have a group that gets together and works out in the park, and that's been the kind of the extent of training for me. And I have no motivation to do it on my own. So it's like I kind of have to.
Yeah, it's tough.
So like that I have to be with people, and then we could do a lot. Like today, we have a little, we do our pad work, and then we have a little workout routine that we all, do together. So that kind of seems to work. Where if it's by myself, like I'll intend on it, but it never happens.
It's interesting. I still can't do, I still can't really do push-ups.
What happened?
However, I injured myself over the summer in my my right pectoral, and like where it connects. You could look right now like this. What would you call it? Like right pectoral as it connects to the bicep?
Yeah, that's
Right. Ryan's looking. I'm showing where it is. What would you call what's those?
I mean, I wouldn't know. I wouldn't know unless you'd have to do an MRI to really know. But it does look like it's the kind of the insertion of where the pec attaches to the shoulder. But again, it's like hard to tell.
And that's probably a common injury.
Where it could be. Did you do anything that?
Yeah, I was boogie boarding, and a couple waves converged, and I went over, and it jerked my arm in a really weird way, and I felt it instantly. It was actually one of the most. It was it was really painful. It was awful. And it was just sort of when your arm gets jerked in a way that only something like multiple waves could happen, and just something like that. So. Yeah, it was really bad. It was really awful for some time. So I can do about 3 or 4 push-ups before it really starts to hurt. and I can
Yeah.
still feel that I like it's tight here.
Yeah.
So
Might be worth getting checked out then.
yeah, I mean, it's getting better slowly. Like it doesn't hurt in general, but if I do a push up, it's hard. I don't know what you could do about it besides, I guess you could have surgery. Feel like I had a small tear there.
Yeah. So before we get to like maybe talking about fitness stuff, have you watched The Boys yet?
I have.
Season 2? And what do you think of season 2?
Just very entertaining.
Did we talk about it last week? I forget now. Or when did you finish watching it? Okay.
I did finish watching. Yeah, it's very entertaining. It's a fun show.
Did you like season 1 better than season 2 or season 2?
I liked them both.
Yeah.
One wasn't there. It was just total. It's like, look, it's that sort of entertainment. I like this style of modern shows that are not television, that are not restricted by television, where it can be, the length can be however long. You could have strange content, things go out. Like I like that format. It's a little more artistic, but it was fun. It was good writing, and it was fun. It was entertaining.
Yeah, it's a good show. It takes things to the next level. There's some great character work in it. So I'm excited. It's kind of like when Game of Thrones ended, I was kind of sad because it's like, what's going to come out that can match it? But then like right away, there was like The Boys, and it was one season, but Watchmen is phenomenal. The Mandalorian's back. That's another show you should watch, even if you're not a huge Star Wars person. Like The Mandalorian's just a great show. Simple, good storytelling.
I've been enjoying, because I don't watch much television. I've been enjoying Peaky Blinders.
Oh yeah, that's great. Yeah, I finished watching that. Peaky Blinders is awesome. Really, and I'm a sucker for kind of any old like British drama, but it's really good. It feels real. Yeah.
I've also liked when we always talk about chess. I also enjoyed. I don't know if you would watch it, but I like playing chess, so I enjoyed watching The Queen's Gambit.
I saw that too.
Yeah, it was pretty good.
Yeah, it's really good. It was kind of hyper stylized in a way that like it works. So it's a good show. Like I can't think of anything bad, to say about it. I think it was really well done. Kind of hits all the right notes. Kind of catches you off guard because there are moments where it's like, oh, she's gonna win this one, she's gonna lose. Oh, and you don't really ever know where they're gonna go with it. But it's really well acted. All the characters are really good.
There's just one. There was one. It was fairly realistic. Sorry, what were you gonna say?
Well, actually, I do have a question for you. So I know how to play chess. And when I was younger, I played a lot, but I haven't played a lot now. So and then my wife doesn't play chess at all. So we were trying to figure out like, were you able to keep up with and see what was going on in the matches, or was it really just done so quickly that you can't really follow? It's like if we're watching a fight, movie about MMA, you can keep up with like, especially if you know fighting, you can keep up with like, okay, who's winning, what's going on. If you most sports you can, but with chess, I wasn't sure if it was just the way they were editing it, that it was just hard to see and follow, and you just had to just go by like the music and the facial expressions, or if you play chess that you really do see like what's going on and how the game is evolving.
It was hard. It was very hard to follow. It was hard to follow it, but if there are channels that for whatever reason you were able to find the full games. So those games, there are channels that actually analyze those games.
Okay.
So pretty much all the games that they had were previous brilliant games.
I was assuming that. Yeah, that I thought right off the bat, I was like, they must have taken those games because you're going to have the super uber nerds, like the uber chess nerds that would be pissed, just like we'd be pissed off if we're watching a fight movie and the fight scene is bad or they're doing things that don't make sense. You're going to have people who are chess nerds that are going to be doing the same thing, and like I would think that they would have taken from like very high level games that were played.
They did, and then they deviated them at some point with I know that Gary Kasparov and another famous chess player, Gary Kasparov, one of the greatest chess players of all time, was a champion for many years. So he was he was a consultant on the show as well as another big player. So they made sure that it was accurate. The couple things, just so that is that people never talk to each other when they're playing. You're not allowed to.
Oh,
like,
okay.
So they would talk to each other. That was for dramatic. Like, look.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Dramatic, right? You're actually not allowed to. The only thing you can do is offer a draw, pretty much, or an adjournment. But the one thing that was almost never stressed, and they touched on it on one part, which is like, oh, all she needs is a draw. Like chess is not played in one game.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So a tournament can be won where you don't have to win the last match. It's not about that, nor should it be.
Yeah.
And when there's a
Well-
match between players, so they used to play like 20 games or 17 games. Like now they play 12 games or 13 games to determine the winner.
Well, I kind of, the way I took it was kind of like that. I felt like, okay, they played in a tournament where they each played a bunch of games and the points were tallied up such that if she were to tie, she would win the tournament
at that one point.
And that if she, and so, and if she were to lose, it would be a draw. And so that, and it was going to show her competitiveness, that she was going to go, spoiler alert, I won't tell you what the result was, but that she was going to go for the win versus going for the draw, even though that would result in her possibly, messing up the tournament. So that was like, I feel like even if it wasn't precise, it was effectively explaining, I took it as explaining the same thing.
But the whole thing with we're obsessed with her beating this, the final, the best guy, beating him one game isn't beating him. Like you have to have a match. So they harped on a lot about being able to beat someone in one game. It's like in baseball, anyone can beat like someone else in one game. That's why they play a series. So that was the only thing, and they touched on it briefly, but that was sort of one thing. Is like, but they're not going to do a match.
But actually,
about a show about a match where they play 17 games.
What I like,
determine
so the two things I do like about that is
that was a small little nothing.
There was the drama in that, the game wasn't really about her being like the best player ever, because she lost to him twice already, and even to win that game, she had help from other people.
But
so
everyone does. But everyone does. That's part of it.
I've just spoiled like the whole movie.
Spoiler alert.
I'm gonna maybe put spoiler alert in the notes.
Just and for what it's worth. I mean, would anyone really think that it's a fictional show that she's not going to win the final game? Like, would anyone possibly go like if you told anyone, oh, she wins, you're like, oh, you ruined it for me. It's like.
Yeah, no. So I mean, it follows a fairly standard like sports.
It's like
format.
Spoiler. Spoiler. If you watch an old Van Damme movie, he wins the final fight. Like,
but no. But I did like that they weren't. I didn't feel like it was trying to say like she's the best, although it was, because she had beaten all. She kind of. There were comments here about how great she was, but I think it was that game, winning that game meant a lot to her. It didn't necessarily make her the number one ranked player, in the world. Like, I don't think that was where it was going. It wasn't like, it was like the World Series or even that, it's like that. It was like, I think beating him was a personal
thing,
accomplishment, and meant a lot for, everybody like that was there for her, but it wasn't necessarily, like the world, it's like the world champion in chess or whatever, whatever you call.
Yeah, she would have had to play the game against Borgoff at the end, like a match where they would have to play, and they probably would too. Like if at that point they would, and I think that the I don't know how often. I think the World Chess Championship maybe used to happen once every year. Now it's every 2 years. So if you're a nerd and you're into that stuff, then it's a good show just anyway.
Yeah.
So getting to fitness, that we finally got around to it. I was
look, we've been winging it because we do not have an interview for today, but
so it's just hanging out with
Ryan and Justin.
Hanging out with there was the GymWits. So but there is something very interesting. So I was remember I was heading out of the city and I was driving, and I was I saw a gym in the city and it looked interesting, and I'm not going to mention the name of it, not yet at least. And I got to looking at it, and I heard a very similar story that we've heard on this podcast before about trainers, about how someone, a young man or woman, was basically, broke, had no prospects, and was like bumming on people's couches or scraping to get by, and then put his nose to the grind and started training people, and then built up this very successful personal training business. And now he has this sort of exclusive gym in the city where they charge a huge amount of money, $200 per session. And it's actually a lot more, I don't know, about $1,000 to train with this guy privately, and or just to have a session with him. I think everything they do is private personal training. So I remember they asked him, they said, well, you charge, he took that whole, you know what, I'm just going to charge the most exorbitant price, and people who are going to pay it are going to pay it. And first off, I don't want to talk about we get that it's a business thing, and I don't, and someone's successful business, they're able to, if you're able to charge that amount and you're able to get clients, then great. Congratulations. I'm not, you know, it's a business. Great that you're able to do that. If you're able to charge $1,000 an hour for, you know, for a session, that's great. Congratulations that you're able to do that. I want to know what your opinion on that is, though. And I know that it's business wise. I'm not saying that it's you know, it's wrong in any way. That's great. But I'm just curious your view on, first, a model where everything is personal training, and where you really charge a lot. And if you think that just because you charge something, charge a lot for something, that means A, it's better, or that you're going to attract, I mean, I'm throwing a lot in here, so use some talking points, you know, that celebrities or people, you know, people are going to go just because it's expensive.
Yeah.
And do you really think that the quality of training is going to be any better than, say, like you, for instance?
I mean, you know, what was that Chris Rock, the joke, like a man is only as faithful as his options?
Yeah,
you know, in a way, it's kind of analogous to this. Like, you know, you're a trainer can only charge as much as, you know, as they're able to command. I mean, it's a weird roundabout way of comparing the two, but you know, most kind of quote celebrity trainers and you know, I mean, look, there is some level of charisma and personality that they're probably going to have, you know.
Sure.
So that's kind of a given. You know, but I know trainers that are super charismatic that make $35 an hour, and I know trainers that are super charismatic that make, you know, 120, 130, $200 an hour. So like, where's the difference? And I mean, often you know, as far as what people can command, I mean, the difference really is, it just comes down to a little bit of luck, you know. I think that's a lot of it is really just luck, especially when you get to like the quote celebrity trainers. Usually it's a situation, you know, most of the people that I know that work with celebrities, me included, it was pure chance that it happened. You know, like most people that work with celebrities that I know of, and that I've known, you know, are no more qualified than any other trainer that I know. You know, like it's not like celebrity trainers have some wealth of knowledge or education that then allows them, you know, to market themselves to trainers or to celebrities or to high profile people. They're, you know, often it's just they happen to be in the right place at the right time. And you know, now some seek it out a little bit more than others. So I definitely know some people who, like, that's their goal, and so they try to hang out with crowds where they can market, you know, promote themselves. And so there is an aspect of it where you have people who are actively like trying to get themselves into that market and meet those kinds of people. And then you have others who just happen to meet the right person. You know, I've had a few celebrity clients, and in every case, it you know, almost to, you know, anything I can think of, it's always been just right place at the right time. It was never because like I'm a particularly good trainer. Nobody was like, oh, you're the guy from the GymWits, let me work out with you. You know, it was just like I just happened to be in the right place at the right time and got some cool, interesting clients and opportunities, you know, from it. So you know, so to kind of answer your question there, you know, the first one part of your question is, yeah, there's no real difference, you know, between the high-end trainers for the most part. I've known super highly qualified people who are making very little. I've known super highly qualified people who make a lot. I know very crappy trainers who make a ton, and I know crappy trainers who make a little. So really, you know, there's no rhyme or reason in that way. It's just luck for the most part. Now, the second part is the pricing. And I'm mixed on that. You know, I think there are a couple of things to consider. So yeah, I'm always like floored in a way that people pay as much as they do to work, to train with me, because I'm not, like I'm not. It's always floors me because they're giving you that money to be with them and to show them, and not that I don't have the expertise, not that I don't have the knowledge, not that I don't have the motivation and skills, et cetera, but like it always strikes me as strange. But like, yeah, if you can make, you charge what you can charge, and you make what you make. And I think the thing with training is, you can kind of compare it to like something like professional wrestling, or not always, but in a lot of cases you compare it to something like wrestling or MMA or something, where you're a contractor, and in that time you're making money, and so you want to commit, you want to make and acquire as much as you can, because it's a career where if you have some devastating injury, or if you get really sick, a lot of us, especially if you're not working at you're not employed with a salary, if you're not physically there training people, you're not making money. And and sorry, there's my crazy dog. And if you lose a couple of key clients, again, same thing, like you're kind of stuck, and you then have to scramble and hustle. And so like COVID, for example, hit a lot of trainers hard, because their clients might have lost their source of income, and then you're going to get rid of all of those kind of areas of, if you lost your income, you're going to have to cut out things that are unnecessary, which training and oftentimes is not a necessary expense. So
now
so
we're talking a lot about the people that are paying for this can afford to pay for it.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean,
so
this particular place that you're talking about, they clearly can afford it, and there are sacrifices. So like, for example, like when I went on that tour, it was a big sacrifice for me. So I my hourly was fairly high. Like what I made per hour of training was extremely high, but there was a big sacrifice on my end, which was basically leaving my business and my clients for 6 weeks. So to some extent, like, so for this guy, or this person you're talking about, like they had to open up an exclusive gym, and that's part of the marketing, is the exclusivity of it. And so you do want to separate yourself from other people. So and a lot of times that is by charging a lot more than other people and making yourself more exclusive, and oftentimes that's going to bring certain people who kind of want you for the kind of cachet. So I get it.
So do you think that, so this guy who charges $1,000 a session, do you think that he has some clients that he doesn't charge that amount to, that he's just saying that, right?
Probably. I would
so.
think so. Yeah.
And so now here's the second about that. If you are a celebrity, you have a lot of money, and you're paying $1,000 per session, which is probably a lot more than the like the strength and conditioning coach, for like, the Patriots or something gets paid, probably, right? Which, so. When you're training the worldest of world-class athletes, right, that, it's funny, but whatever, that's here nor there. So why not, if you're paying that for a trainer, why not just have a trainer like at your house? Like, just pay a full-time trainer that you can, it would probably cost less, because there's a lot of trainers that are really good that were like, okay, if you want to just just be on call, I'll pay you, $40,000 or $50,000 a year, and you come train me whenever I want, right? And I think there would be a ton of trainers that would jump at that opportunity. It's a lot of that's a lot of money for some trainers.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, like I said, I think so you have a few
why not
options,
just pay a salary?
There's one person who, there's one set of people, you're right, like that's almost a salary. You work with them a couple days a week, a lot of trainers would jump at that, at the salary that they'd be making. But I think a couple of answers. So number one, either, he's such a great trainer, which is hard to, again, I can't imagine that anybody as a personal trainer is worth $2,000 or $1,000 an hour. It just doesn't make sense. That I can't think of what any single trainer can provide that's worth that, unless they're so motivating that that you can't find that kind of motivation anywhere else. So that maybe it could also be like, look, if they've gotten to a point, if they're working with the most exclusive of the most exclusive, these are people who can't afford it. And so if you can sell yourself on why you're more valuable than anybody else, and the $1,000 means nothing to you, then I guess that that's that's a way to do it. And then at some point, again, it's like the cachet and the exclusivity of it. So it's like, you're going to have people almost competing with each other to keep up, with the Joneses, so to speak. So, I think you get to the point where that becomes the kind of calculus of how you're going to make a decision if you are a client looking to work with this guy. And all the power to him if he can do it, as long as he's not lying or manipulating or.
And I have no doubt that this guy's like a good trainer, like that he knows what he's doing, right?
Yeah.
Probably be hard to get there. Although I guess people have gotten to very high positions without having any ability. But
here's another thing: is like the other thing could be is like maybe he was just like, screw this, I don't want to train anymore, so I'm just going to make my rate so high that if anyone does work with me, it's really worth my time. One of my old coaches did that. Like he basically was charging like $400 an hour. And it wasn't because he wanted to make that kind of money. It wasn't like, I'm going to charge that and people are going to pay me. It was like, I don't like doing this anymore. So if you're going to make me get out and hold pads for you.
No, it's making you do it. Like, you can just retire if you want.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's the thing is, so he's like, look, if it's going to be worth my while. So,
sure. Which is respectable.
Yeah.
It's totally, totally makes sense. I just always find it funny when people try to command that without having actually, like, your coach, I think, trained many famous athletes, right?
Yeah.
If it's the one I'm thinking of, right? It's like he could do whatever he wants, right? Yeah. Like he can command what he wants to command because he's like, well, look at who's under me.
Yeah.
So, but like just to say that, just to train, to command that price without having really, it's like, well, who have you trained? It's like, well, I've trained other, who knows? Yeah.
So well, you don't know. Funny. I mean, we don't know.
There is that theory that, hey, you just charge what you want to make and it'll happen. Like there's that whole business mentality. I'm just going to do it. And although, and you hear stories of that where people are like, oh, I just going to do it. And it's going to, and it does happen. But how many people just don't succeed at that?
Yeah.
Where they're like, I'm just going to charge. I'm just going to go through with it. And they like completely.
Yeah, but I would have a hard time charging like $1,000. Even if I could get away with it, I'd feel, again, maybe if I had my own studio and I got bills to pay, but that'd be a tough pill to swallow even for me. Cause I just would feel like, I'm ripping people off at that rate, but, I'm not in that position.
What job is worth, $1,000 an hour?
Well, I mean, if you're a capitalist, it's whatever the market is,
right? But I'm saying, like, if you can think about per value, and if you're able to generate that, right. If you're able,
it's like, are we looking at the market or are we looking at like social good? Because I think there's a difference of what's worth that kind of money.
Well, first off, if you're able to generate that sort of money, then it's worth.
Yeah,
that's what I believe, right? So, like, if you're if you're a basketball player and you sell merchandise and you do this, and you generate probably maybe even far more than that, then you deserve to get paid it. Now, maybe perhaps a doctor or something like that who gets paid a lot more than that,
saving lives. Scientists,
a surgeon or something like that. Scientists do not get paid that.
I'm saying they should. Yeah, not that they do. They should.
Teachers should get paid that, right? Because they're of the most important, but they don't. So it's just funny the way that that it works. And if you think about it, teachers do indirectly generate that money because they're teaching people to be doctors or stockbrokers or staying out of jail or each and everything, not going on drugs, which costs, right? So all of these things, like the indirect ways that teachers, school teachers, help the society, they do not get compensated for.
Not at all.
Sadly, but.
All right. Well, I guess we'll get to the you'll have to cut this. Also, give me permission to record. We're gonna do the Ask the Trainer. Okay. So you ready? You have the question?
Let me get it. Yes, I have it.
All right, cool. All right.
Or do you want to say that we haven't asked the trainer?
Yeah. Yep. All right, so we have another Ask the Trainer this week. So
nice.
Justin, Yeah, no, and we're getting some cool, like some good questions. So definitely, keep them coming. So, what's the question for this week?
Okay. So, hi. It comes from Tamir. And Tamir asks, "Hi, Ryan, Justin, and Tony. I have a question about recovery. I'm 19 years old and I exercise about 5 days a week. I usually do 4 days of weight training, alternating upper and lower body. On 2 of the weight training days, I add some cardio. And then on the 5th day, I go for a long run. I've read that it's important to rest 2 days a week, but I can't help but feel as if I'm not training hard enough. Would it be bad if I add a 6th day of exercise during the week, or will the extra day lead to overtraining?" And thank you, Tamir, for writing in. We appreciate it.
All right, that's a good question. Um, you know, you, we're looking at a few things when it comes to overtraining. So the short answer is you can probably add a 6th day. Doesn't sound like what you're doing is bordering on overtraining, especially since, like, if you look at it, you're doing 4 days of weight training, so you have 3 days of rest from weight training, and you're doing 3 days of cardio training. So you're getting 4 days of rest from cardio, and then you just have 2 full days off. So as long as your body, part of it you'd want to think about how often, like, how long have you been doing this? Like, I would say that you're pretty young. So at 19, you can probably handle a lot. The way your workout program is structured sounds like you're in reasonably good shape to be able to manage that. So, I would just consider. So first thing I would think about now is, do you feel physically, like you're having a hard time on your off days, which it doesn't sound like it if you feel like you can do some more. So I guess the first part would be, um, how are you physically feeling now? And it sounds like you feel okay. So I would say, yeah, you probably physically are okay to do it. Uh, I would say, try adding an extra day. If it's cardio, it sounds like it's perfectly fine. If it's weights, even, it still sounds like it's perfectly fine. You might want to get a little more of a specific weight training program. If you're just alternating upper and lower, maybe you can start to be a little more specific on the body parts if you're doing more of a bodybuilding program. But I need a little more information on the specifics of what you're doing. If you're training for a sport, if you're training for aesthetics, if you're training for a competition or of some sort. But I would say at the stage you're at now, you're okay. I personally, I always recommend like 1 full day off, at minimum, and usually 2 full days off. But again, in your case, you're young, and it seems like you're splitting things up in a way that you can probably get away with adding a 6th day, or maybe instead of adding, really active, like weight training or cardio or conditioning, maybe use that data to, like we were talking about before, like trying new skills. Maybe practice a new skill or learn something that requires motor work, and kind of neuromuscular work, but maybe is not as intense, on the muscles or on the cardiovascular system. You can also think about maybe doing something like yoga, or like Pilates. So something that is little more maybe restorative, or focused on control. So maybe think about trying something new on that 6th day,
Hmm.
rather than just continuing with what you're currently doing. But from the sounds of it, it doesn't sound like you're doing too much, and you're not complaining about feeling like you're overtrained. So I would say you're probably good to go as far as like adding something on that 6th day. I just try to play around a little bit with what you want to do for that 6th day.
And it sounds like you enjoy working out.
Yeah.
So if that's something that you really enjoy doing, then it's probably something that's not a bad idea to do. I've found that, not that I've gone for working out 6 days a week, that it could lead, while maybe it doesn't lead to physical fatigue, it could lead to some mental fatigue when it comes to working out. So another option is, you mentioned you felt like you weren't working out hard enough, that you weren't getting enough in. That another option is to potentially try to increase, and once again, you'd have to do this the right way, increase the intensity of the workouts that you're already doing.
Yeah.
So maybe it could be adding a few sets. It could be maybe upping the weight. It could be, there's obviously different ways to up the intensity, and maybe then you'll feel satisfied in the work that you're doing. Like, how intense are the workouts that you're doing? Ryan, what do you think is more bang for your buck? Doing the 5 workouts where maybe out of 4 of them you really push yourself hard. Maybe the 5th workout isn't as crazy, or less intense workouts, but on the like adding another day.
Uh,
Or does it always depend on the person?
A little bit depends on the person, a little bit depends on the program. So if it's, let's say he's in more of a bodybuilding program where he's really trying to put on size, I would probably err on the side of more days a week, and slightly less intense. But generally, when performance is concerned, you're better off working harder, fewer days a week than you are at working at a lower level, but more. So, but again, it's a little bit more specific.
And once again, Tamir, I know that you're young and you can get away with a lot, as we all did when we were 19. But the better your diet is, and Tony isn't here right now, but there's certain definitely things that you can do, and that are sort of general knowledge. Just make sure that your diet is is in order, and it'll help you, especially if you choose that 6th day, your diet, and of course your rest. You can get away with a lot when you're young, but it doesn't mean that you want to be eating bad food and not sleeping at all.
Yeah, no, so great question. And, the only other thing I'd add is if you add something and you do start to feel like you're overtraining, you do start to feel like you're overly exhausted, pre and post workout, you're lethargic, you've lost motivation, then you might want to scale back a little bit. But otherwise, thanks, Justin. It helped answer this question for me as well. And as usual, if you have questions, you can either submit them on the website, thegymwits.com, or email them to thegymwits@gmail.com. All right, so we've got, I guess, one more thing for today before we sign off. Actually, we got a lot out of this episode as far as time's concerned.
Always do.
So we always figure it out. We have to, again, especially on election day. Okay, so interesting study. This one is dealing with masks. So masks have been controversial. I think it's kind of it's ridiculous that it has been a controversial topic, but it has been. And so one of the things people kind of do talk about is that masks, there's some kind of buildup of CO2 and that they're dangerous, blah, blah, blah. So this study was kind of looking at masks and cognitive performance, as well as some other kind of how the body does react to wearing a mask basically doing physical work in a hot environment. So, look, while I do think masks are important, and if everyone's wearing a mask, it does help to deal with coronavirus. I like everybody else, I know that masks can be uncomfortable, especially when you're exercising, or if you are kind of out and about. And so if you know that masks provide some discomfort, and then you hear, whether it's an article or a video or something, you hear somebody say that masks could potentially be dangerous. It's not unreasonable in our world to kind of be concerned by that. So, this is a study, again, looking at kind of the effects of masks if you're working in a hot environment, which could come into play if you are doing kind of manual work, if you're moving, if you're doing any kind of labor, and you have to wear a mask. So, like a lot of studies, you take what you can from it. So it's not the be all to end all. But in this study, it looked at men, ages 27 to 41, and they measured them kind of working out in 2 instances. So one instance with a face mask and one barefaced. And they would have them sit at a chamber at 40 degrees Celsius. I don't know why I didn't convert that earlier, but 40 Celsius to Fahrenheit is 104 degrees. Thank you, Google. So it was pretty hot. So they had them working out at 40 degrees or 101 degrees Fahrenheit. And where are my months? And is a 20% humidity. And so they would have them sit in this chamber for 30 minutes, and then they go through a 45-minute workout. The workout was meant to kind of mimic occupational work. So it was kind of, done to mimic like kind of a moderate intensity, kind of occupational work. And then they measured, so they did some physiological measurements, perceptual measurements, and motor cognitive measurements, which was basically, it was a computer-based test where they were looking at both math and fine motor skills. And so they were kind of comparing the two. So in the comparison, there was no difference in cognitive performance in body temperature for either group, or thermal discomfort. So basically, in both groups, they effectively, felt this, reacted the same, to the heat and work, whether they were wearing a mask or not. The only difference, and which we can all attest to, I think, is the breathing was a little bit more difficult. Which I think we all have. Like if I have to run to catch a train,
Sure.
I'm a little bit more out of breath. Or when I go, if I don't take my mask off when I walk up the stairs in my apartment building, I'm a little bit more out of breath. Or if I exercise with a mask on, I'm a little bit more out of breath than I normally would be. But at least the results for this test, showing that, yes, there is discomfort. And then kind of intellectually, we start to think, well, if there's discomfort, is this bad for me? And at least this is showing, there don't seem to be, things wrong, if anything wrong. And there are a number of other studies that have looked into this as well. That masks effectively seem to be pretty safe. And you can wear them, without worrying that you're going to, pass out and die.
Good to know. So, yeah, no, it's, you're going to hear, especially in this day and age, you're going to hear tons of misinformation just because people have their own agendas. Someone might not like masks because they feel like it's, the government trying to take control of us or something like that, or forcing us to do something.
Which I never... Sorry, I don't understand. So I have a couple of people that say this, that like the masks are a way for the government to make us feel like sheep, which makes no sense. Because if the government they want to know who is where at all times, and you can't really do that with the mask on. And like it's not like we're wearing masks at all times. You can still see people's eyes. I recognize tons of people, walking on the street with their masks on. So that whole idea is absolutely ridiculous. Like, okay, if you don't want to listen to the government, fine. But I think if the government wanted to control us, there are far more useful tools than making us wear a stupid cloth mask, where for what it's worth, you add your own individualism to the type of mask you get, what you wear. So, I don't know. It's just kind of like,
yeah, but
come
you
on.
hear stuff like that all the time. And,
sheeple and...
it's well, look, we know about all those crazies that, it's my right. Like, but the whole thing doesn't make any sense. But in this day and age, you hear tons of misinformation being spread because someone has some weird agenda, or someone just wants to spread something for no reason.
Yeah.
Right. So it's very important to listen to, to really look at the facts, look at logic. So studies like this are good, that show the reality of, as much as I know it's just one study, and as we always say, you can never rely completely on one study, but when things like this come out, right, it I think it's good.
Yeah, like I always talk about, like, what I like about this kind of segment, or that we look at these studies, is two things that it does is, it does kind of, you want to look at kind of where's the science on these different things and what's coming out, so get an idea. We always try to say, we always add that caveat that, no one study is going to, form a consensus. And so, but these are always, to me, are interesting. This is in line with, many of the other studies, but it also goes to show you, like, what, that you need, like in this case, it was only testing a certain population. They were men. It was a relatively small study. They were looking at specific, things. So we don't know how effective it is if you're, obese, or if you have health problems or whatever.
Sure.
So yeah, they're very small, but it's always good to kind of get these ideas of where the science is, how these studies are conducted, and to understand that we always want to take it with a grain of salt. So even though we're talking about it, like, yeah, we're even saying, like, yeah, it falls in line with what we believe. It points towards masks being good, but obviously there are plenty of flaws, for somebody who's going to, like, I wouldn't run around the street saying, see, masks are good, because, yeah, like, we know that, okay, masks seem to be okay for men ages 27 to 41 doing moderate work,
Sure.
with a mask on. We don't, that's what we can tell from the study, and that's it. And but it's still interesting, and I'd like to include it there for the mask. So I think we've probably angered enough people at this point. Although I feel like, yeah, anybody that would get angry with this is probably not listening to the podcast, because I think we made our thoughts clear enough that hopefully nobody's like hate listening. to that. But I guess that's it. So another one. Again, it'll be interesting. When this gets published, we'll probably know who won the election, and fingers crossed. But that's it. I'm Ryan George.
I'm Justin Guild, aka Chef Sonic, reminding you that truth does not sell.
And we are the GymWits.